everyone, it's Zinia here from Abstract Inspiration, and I'm back for another art journaling process video using some of my favorite Shimmerz products. Today I decided to go back to the Shimmerz roots and use some of the creamies and Inklings, sort of like those watercolory type of products in the range. But because the journal I have with me actually has some drawing paper, it's not watercolor paper, and I'm not excited about the way the watercolors flow on it, I decided to play around and create my own watercolor ground. Now, watercolor ground is basically a primer for watercolors. It's like gesso, but it is absorbent, so you can paint with watercolors on it and the color will flow beautifully without creating those splotches you'll get on the gesso. So you can buy this ready from a couple of different companies. It's called Absorbent ground or watercolor ground or something along those lines. But if you don't want to waste money or spend extra money or invest in something like that, or you just want to try it before you buy it, you can make it on your own with supplies you probably already have at home. So you will need gesso and light modeling paste. Now, the modeling paste out there come in a few different consistencies. Some have some sort of like glossy plasticky finish. That's not what we want here. We want a fluffy paste that has a slightly grit on it. The one I used is the Winsor & Newton Galleria modeling paste, and that worked great. Any sort of light paste, you know, it has that fluffiness, it will work beautifully. And for the recipe you will basically need 1 part gesso, 1 part modeling paste, but because I also wanted to add a little bit of acrylic paint and tint my ground, I added a little bit more modeling paste than gesso, so it was around 1 to 1.5 parts. You can play around with the mix yourself until you get something you like. I personally prefer my ground to be a little bit more absorbent, so I always go a little bit heavier on the modeling paste. And as you saw, I added a tiny drop of acrytones and tinted my ground a little bit to create this beautiful light pink color. You can certainly do that if you add bigger amounts of acrylic. Make sure to add extra modeling paste to fix the consistency. And you know, you spread it out, and you will need a relatively generous application. Don't go too thick. The thicker application you use, the more the stronger the absorbency will be. If it's too thin, it won't be able to absorb the paint. So you don't need to overdo it, but you need a really nice layer of that ground on your page. Also, you will need to wait for it to completely dry before you start adding your watercolors. And the fun part about using this watercolor ground is that you can create extra texture on it. Now, you can go very thin and smooth the surface out completely, but I really enjoy creating those palette knife marks and have my surface being a little bit textured. And you can kind of see it already on the page right now, but you will see it even better in the close-up shots in the end of this video, so make sure to stay tuned and take a look. Now, as I said, I'm using a bunch of the Inklings and creamies here, and I will have all the colors listed on the Shimmerz blog. And if you actually want to place an order and grab some of these beautiful colors, you can mention my name, Zinia, at the checkout process of your order and get a free product. So don't forget to do that. So here I finished sort of laying my watercolor splashes. I just went randomly with some of my favorite colors and created this watercolor look. And you see how beautifully the absorbent ground took the color. You didn't get those splotches, resisty look thing you get on the gesso. It worked beautifully. Now I'm getting this spray in pink stilettos, it's a colorings, and I am adding a few drops in a water brush. And that is because I want to add some doodling, but I didn't want to add it with some of my paint pens or something like that. I still wanted that watercolor look, and instead of putting some color on a palette and keep dipping your brush in it, I think it's very much convenient to add a few drops in your water brush and play around with that. So that's what it did. So I just doodle a few kind of leaves and vines around the page, and you can see it looks a bit better even it's on top of that the other colors, because that part is where I put my absorbent ground. At some point I'm gonna move on and add some of these vines on the edges of the page, and if you look closely you will see a significant difference on the way the paint stays on the paper. So when it's in the middle of the page you can see how it sticks to the absorbent ground, and when you see the doodles I have on the edges of the page, that will be in the close-up shots in a second, you will see how it looks so much different on the edges. And I really think it's worth playing around with that absorbent ground, because you get a really beautiful look for your shimmers, inklings and creamies and all the beautiful watercolory products. Now, one thing I forgot to try out is how much you can lift up from the color, but even though it's supposed to be absorbent ground, I'm pretty much sure you can lift and do these kind of color lifting techniques just fine on this. But as I said, I haven't tried it myself, so you can experiment on your own and have some fun with that. Now I'm done with my doodly vines here, and I'm gonna go back in with a white paint pen, and I had a couple of them and I couldn't decide what to go for. Some of them are not as opaque, so in the end I think I settled with a Jane Davenport paint pen in the color Unicorn, if I'm not mistaken, and I just randomly doodled the outlines of the leaves. And the thing is, because I use the colorings, the color kind of reactivates with any paint you put on it, especially since it's a thin application, so it won't be completely white, and also it kind of stains the tip of the pen. But don't worry about that, you can scribble it out, it's not going to contaminate the whole pen. But just in case you're worried, just letting you know. So you won't be surprised if you see the tip of your white pen getting a little bit pink. It's not gonna be a problem. You can just scribble it off and it's gonna work just fine. And my final step here to finish the page will be to use chalk marker by Uni, and this is one of my most favorite supplies in my art arsenal. I love this pen. It's kind of like a paint pen. It's called a chalk marker, and I like how juicy it is. If you like push the tip on the side of your page and then just shake it on top of it, it just drips color, and I think that's awesome. It's like my favorite way to add splatters on the page, because I don't need to use a paintbrush and then clean it or anything like that, or squish out paint from a tube or something and then, you know, not use it all and have leftover. So I really love this pen too, and it gives a really nice coverage, completely opaque white, and I should probably take a look if it exists in more colors, because I would really love it. Anyway, I really hope you enjoyed the process and got some tips on how to use your shimmer supplies. I really think that technique with the DIY absorbent ground will give you a really nice new perspective in how to use your shimmers, inklings and creamies, and all your watery media. Also your sprays will work really beautifully on that. I may actually try that in a future video, just go for the absorbent ground base again and play around with some of the sprays and see what cool looks we get. But that's an idea for later. For now, thank you so much for watching. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments down below and I will try to help you as much as I can. And I will see you again next time. Bye!